Hey everyone, welcome to St Stephen's Online. We hope you enjoy catching up on our talk from Sunday.
Today we are looking at not just that passage that you heard, but the whole idea of Israel being rescued from Egypt. That's our theme as we work through, as Lauren said earlier, the life of Moses. Now, we were visiting friends on holiday a few weeks ago. We are no longer bound to school holidays. It's such a liberation. And we were talking to friends from my university days. Over supper, Dave, who is now a church warden, was saying, our lay reader has come to the point where she doesn't believe in an interventionist God. So let's think about that for a moment. Do we believe in an interventionist God? Because she was saying to him that she'd prayed so many prayers that weren't answered. And so how could she go on believing that God intervened in everyday life? How could we believe in a God who acts, in a God who steps into his world and doesn't just stand far off? And actually, there are many Christians, possibly even some here this morning, certainly many in more liberal churches, who've given up believing in an interventionist God. And I don't know if you ever think about what Jews believe. Jews who read the Old Testament, Jews for whom that passage we heard read is their scripture, what they think about God and his actions in the world today. And after the Holocaust, many Jews stopped believing in an interventionist God, a God who acts in his world. So, a Jewish writer called Richard Rubinstein said, "The thread uniting God and man, heaven and earth, has been broken. We stand in a cold, silent, unfeeling cosmos, unaided by any powerful power beyond our own resources. After Auschwitz, what else can a Jew say about God?" It's very stirring, it's very sad, it's very thought-provoking. But the heart of the Jewish faith is Passover. This was a Seder meal which we held at my previous church one Easter time, because our communion service is rooted in that Jewish Passover. But for Jews, every year they still have a Passover meal. And the meaning of Passover is Exodus, is freedom, liberation from Egypt. God rescued his people. And that's what we heard about in our reading. An interventionist God came to his people, trapped in slavery in Egypt, under the thumb of Pharaoh, and he set them free. God rescued his people. There's a Jewish joke I've come across. Why do we have our festivals? What are they all about? Well, it's this. They tried to kill us. God saved us. Let's eat. That is the heart of Passover. That is the Exodus message. Now, I know Lauren is not the only one who's been on holiday for the last 2 weeks and hasn't heard the story so far. So we love detective stories, and they start often with previously. So let's have a quick look at previously what's been happening the last 2 weeks, because we are racing through the life of Moses. We are racing through the book of Exodus. So we're just going to have a quick recap. Israel, I've already given it away, haven't I? I've already said Israel is enslaved in Egypt. Here's a photograph of them. Pharaoh is concerned because there are too many Israelite slaves being born. And so the murderous megalomaniac sets forth this decree: you'll let the girls live when they're born, but every baby boy shall be killed. We don't want them getting any more numerous. And God, and this is the first and second chapters of Exodus, God rescues a baby boy called Moses through the intervention. This is Exodus chapter 2, glorious story if you've never read it. Through a basket in the river. And it's through the courage and the imagination and the creativity of his mother and his sister. And I would happily preach you a whole sermon on that, but you've already heard one if you were here, in a Bible that's supposed to be very patriarchal and the stories of men. Actually, it's the women who are the heroines in Exodus chapter 1 and Exodus chapter 2. Moses is rescued by their courage. And then last week, Libby was talking about how Moses, now grown up, was in the backside of the desert. That's what it literally says at the start of Exodus chapter 3. When we say backside, we mean, yes, backside. My parents retired to a town called Wisbech in the Fens, and I kind of felt it was a bit of the backside of the wilderness. But there he was in a place far from his people, apparently far from where God was worshipped, in exile because he'd done something stupid and killed an Egyptian overseer. And he'd been there decades when God showed up. And you doubtless know the story, in a burning bush. There is the bush, and apparently if you press a button, it can burn. But I haven't seen that. He's called by God. He meets with God, and God says, Moses, go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let your people, my people, go. Let them be freed from slavery. So that's the story so far. And now we have Moses back in Egypt confronting Pharaoh. Now think about it for a moment. On the screen is a picture of the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is a spiritual leader of the people of Tibet. He has a lot of soft power in that there are a lot of people who appreciate him, support him, but he has no political power. Tibet is occupied by the Chinese. It has been for decades. And the most powerful men in the world include Xi Jinping, the ruler of China. He's right up there with Trump and above Putin, I would say. Now imagine the Dalai Lama going to Xi Jinping and saying, hey, President Xi, please free Tibet and let all the Chinese soldiers leave Tibet and give it back to its people. What do you think the chances are of him doing anything about that? Nil. No way is he going to take any notice of this ridiculous man from Tibet. That is what was happening in Exodus in our reading. Moses, a member of a slave people who'd fled to another country because he killed one of the Egyptians, has come back and is demanding that the most powerful man in the world in those days, Pharaoh, should let his slaves, his workforce, the people who built the pyramids and those glorious temples, they should let them go. I mean, no way. Why on earth should Pharaoh listen to Moses? He's not going to do it. And here's the thing. Only God can do it. Moses knows that. God certainly knows that. Pharaoh doesn't yet know it. But God tells Moses, this is how we're going to do it. And that's our reading. Exodus chapter 12, verses 12 and 13. I will pass through Egypt, and I will strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I'll bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. That's why it's called Passover, because the angel of death will pass through Egypt, but where the angel sees the blood of the lamb on the doorpost, will pass over that household. And of course, if you're an Egyptian and you see the Hebrews doing that and you think, why are they doing that? Oh, that sounds a good idea. I'll do that too. Then the angel of death will pass over you. God did not discriminate if you had faith in him and put blood on the doorpost. And so that's what happens. The angel of death passes through Egypt, and there is great sadness and mourning in Egypt because the firstborn die. It's God's nuclear option to end this. And so Pharaoh says, go, get out of here, take them away. And so after that, Israel did what Moses said, and every year they celebrated. God had rescued them. God had stepped in. God had intervened and set them free from slavery in Egypt. And ever after that, Israel looked back and they remembered and they celebrated and they gave thanks. Every year they remembered this story. It's like a scarlet thread that runs through the Old Testament. So I have been I've been preaching through Deuteronomy because that's where the lectionary's been taking us. So Deuteronomy 26 is one of many different passages that I could quote where Israel tells the story again and again. The Egyptians ill-treated us and made us suffer, subjecting us to harsh labor. Then we cried out to the Lord, the God of our ancestors, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our misery, toil, and oppression. So the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great terror and with signs and wonders. Israel looks back and says, that's our story. That's our God. That's what he did. He rescued us. He did it for us. Or the Psalms. We actually opened our service with a verse from one of the Psalms that reflected that. But I'd picked a different one, not knowing that was going to come up. Psalm 136, give thanks to him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt. His love endures forever. And brought Israel out from among them. His love endures forever. With a mighty hand, an outstretched arm. His love endures forever. It's echoed in Israel's songs again and again and again. This is a God who rescues. This is a God who intervenes. Every year when the Jews come together and they celebrate Passover, they remember we worship an interventionist God. We worship a God who rescues, a God who saves. And as Christians, we remember a particular Passover. It was around 1,200 years later, after the liberation from Egypt. So John chapter 13, verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. Jesus knows that the Passover is coming. Jesus knows that the time when they sacrifice the lamb is coming. And so Jesus tells his disciples, get an upper room ready where we can celebrate the Passover together, where we can remember the God who rescues his people. And he knows, but they don't yet understand it, that he will be the sacrificial lamb who is killed at Passover. So 1 Corinthians 5 verse 7, Paul looks back and says, Christ, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed for us. Or in 1 Peter looks back and says, it wasn't with perishable things, such as silver or gold, that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. So the early Christians celebrated the fact that Jesus' death, Jesus' sacrifice, means that we've been set free, not just from slavery in Egypt, but from the slavery of sin, the slavery of death, the fear of death, not just to be repeated every year with a lamb being slain, but once for all, the Son of God giving his life, God himself intervening in our world and setting us free, rescuing us for all eternity, so that we are rescued, we are redeemed, we are saved, we are forgiven, we are ransomed. The Bible uses so many words. We are restored to relationship with God. The gate to heaven is open. All through this one act of Jesus giving his life on the cross. We are free. And so I want to think about what that means for us. And I've got 3 easy to remember headings. The first one is, we should be people of praise. St. Augustine said, a Christian should be an alleluia from head to foot. If you, like me, have grown up thinking Augustine was rather dour and a bit miserable, it's quite a surprise. Are you an alleluia from head to foot? Because we have got so much to be grateful for. On Tuesday morning at Sir Richard's, we have a midweek service. I mean, it's not quite mid, but it's sort of midweek service. And this week, the chosen passage from the lectionary was Deuteronomy 10. Now, let's be honest, we don't often turn to Deuteronomy 10, but it was a revelation. It's a fantastic passage. He is your praise. He is your God who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes. That's our God. And again, as we've already seen from the Psalms, Israel is told, celebrate your God. Give thanks to your God. Remember your God, what he's done for you. Rejoice. And here is a wonderful thing. Even on the most miserable of days, totally unlike today, when the rain is pouring down, when you're freezing cold, when you've got the most stinking cold, and you feel terrible, and the world is all against you, and things in your life are crumbling and falling apart, it is still true that Jesus died for you because God loves you. And God has stepped into our world to rescue you and redeem you and save you. That's why we should be and can be a people of praise. Because it's true. Every day it's true what he has done for us. It's a fact. So let's be people of praise, loved, rescued, forgiven, free. Secondly, let's be people of faith. As Deuteronomy said, he's a God who did great and awesome wonders. That was what our reading was all about. He is a God who has, in the face of everything the world could throw against Jesus, turned things round so that through his death and resurrection, the death which seemed to have won was actually defeated. And the power of Satan, which seemed to be triumphant, was actually destroyed. That's what God has done. God has rescued his people at the Exodus and at Easter. So we know what God can do. Now, true, not all our prayers are answered. But when we truly know he is a God of love, he is a God of grace, he is a God of freedom, liberation, rescue, then we can trust him and keep asking him in our prayers. Keep asking him in prayer ministry. Lord, this is my situation. This is my challenge. This is my problem. This is what I'm facing. You're a God who rescues. Increase my faith. Come and speak to me. And sometimes the answer will be, well, I'm not going to change that situation, but I want to change you. But he is a God who loves, who cares, who rescues. So let's be people of faith who look at the Exodus, who look at the cross, who look, as we take bread and wine, back to what Jesus has done, and be people of faith. And then finally, it means we're going to be people of grace, because we are those who have received grace upon grace. We are those who have been rescued and set free and forgiven and adopted and chosen, not for any merit of our own, but just because of God's amazing grace. We didn't earn it. We didn't deserve it. He just chose to love us. So we too should be gracious people, people known for our grace, people known as forgiving because we're forgiven, people of kindness, people of mercy. Again, on Tuesday, my Deuteronomy reading was this. You're to love, this is Deuteronomy 10:19, you're to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. You know what it's like to be enslaved. You know what it's like to be badly treated. So for those who are in your midst, love them, care for them. Don't treat them like you were treated. Because we're God's children, because we're Jesus' sisters and brothers, we should be people of love and grace and mercy, as he was. And you know, as I know, that Christians are not always known for that. but as people who've been rescued. Let's be people of grace. Let's be people of faith. Let's be people of praise.
Thanks for listening. We hope you found that encouraging. Have a great week and see you soon.